This page was created to teach Black history. Unfortunately, the American educational system was designed to exclude our real historical account, so we are here to dismantle it. It's time to enlighten those of us who have been kept in the dark. I am a Black man who didn't know enough about my own history, so I began to dig deeper and do my own research. Black history is American history, so I want people of all races and cultures to join together to learn our history as one. Here, I will share all of my findings. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe to Teaching Black History.
The story of Fannie Lou Hamer. Townsend was born on October 6, 1917 in Montgomery County, Mississippi, the last of 20 children of Ella and James Lee Townsend. After some of their animal stock was mysteriously poisoned, she suspected a local racist had done it. She said that this incident, our stock got poisoned. We know this white man had done it. That white man did it just because we were getting somewhere. White people never like to see Negroes get a little success. All of this stuff is no secret in the state of Mississippi. In 1919, the Townsend moved to Sunflower County, Mississippi, to work as sharecroppers on W.D. Marlowe's plantation. From age 6, Fannie picked cotton with her family. During the winters of 1924 through 1930, she attended the one-room school provided for the sharecroppers' children, open between picking seasons. Fannie loved reading and excelled in spelling bees and reciting poetry, but at age 12 she had to leave school to help support her aging parents. By age 13, she would pick 200 to 300 pounds of cotton daily while living with polio. In 1944, after the plantation owner discovered her literacy, she was selected as its time and record keeper. The following year, she married Perry Pap Hamer, a tractor driver on the Marlowe plantation, and they remained there for the next 18 years. Hamer and her husband wanted very much to start a family, but in 1961, Hamer received a hysterectomy by a white doctor without her consent while undergoing surgery to remove a tumor. Forced sterilization was a common method of population control in Mississippi that targeted poor African American women. Members of the Black community called the procedure a Mississippi appendectomy. The Hamers later raised 2 girls they adopted. One died of internal hemorrhaging after she was denied admission to the local hospital because her mother's activism. Hamer became interested in the civil rights movement in the 1950s. She heard leaders in the local movement speak at annual regional council or Negro leadership conferences held in Mississippi. The yearly conferences discussed Black voting rights and other civil rights issues Black communities in the area faced. On August 31st, 1962, Hamer and 17 others attempted to vote but failed a literacy test, which meant she was denied this right. She was fired by her boss, but her husband was required to stay on the land until the end of the harvest. Hamer moved between homes over the next several days for protection. On September 10th, while staying with friend Mary Tucker, Hamer was shot at 15 times in a drive-by shooting by racists. No one was injured in the event. The next day, Hamer and her family evacuated for 3 months, fearing retaliation by the Ku Klux Klan for her attempt to vote. On December 4th, just after returning to her hometown, she went to the courthouse to take the literacy test again, but failed and was turned away. Hamer told the register that you'll see me every 30 days till I pass. On January 10th, 1963, Hamer took the literacy test a third time. She was successful and was informed that she was now a registered voter in the state of Mississippi. However, when she attempted to vote that fall, she discovered her registration gave no actual power to a vote, as her county also required voters to have 2 poll tax receipts. This requirement had emerged some states after the right to vote was given to all races by the 1870 ratification of the 15th Amendment of the United States Constitution. These laws, along with the literacy test and local government acts of coercion when used against blacks and Native Americans. Hamer later paid for and acquired the poll tax receipts. Hamer began to become more involved in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. After these incidents, she attended many Southern Christian leadership conferences, which she, at the time, taught classes for, and also various workshops. She traveled to gather signatures for petitions to attempt to be granted federal resources for impoverished black families across the South. She also became a field secretary for voter registration and welfare programs. Many of these first actions to attempt to register more black voters in Mississippi were met with the same problems Hamer had in trying to register herself. In 1963, Hamer decided to attend a pro-citizenship conference by the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Charleston, South Carolina. Traveling by bus with co-activists, the party stopped for a break. Some of the activists went inside a local cafe but refused service by the waitress. Shortly after, a Mississippi State Highway patrolman took out his billy club and intimidated the activists into leaving. One of the group decided to take down officer's license plate number. While doing so, the patrolman and a police chief entered the cafe and arrested the party. Hamer left the bus and inquired if they could continue their journey back to Greenwood, Mississippi. At that point, the officers arrested her as well. Once in county jail, Hamer's colleagues were beaten by the police in the booking room, including 15-year-old June Johnson for not addressing officers as sir. Hamer was then taken to a cell where 2 inmates were ordered by the state trooper to beat her using a blackjack. The police ensured she would be held down during the almost fatal beating, and when she started to scream, beat her further. Hamer was also groped repeatedly by officers during the assault. When she attempted to resist, she stated an officer walked over, took my dress, pulled it up over my shoulders, leaving my body exposed to 5 men. Another in her group was beaten until she was unable to talk. A third teenager was beaten, stomped on, and stripped. An activist from the SNCC came the next day to see if he could help, but was beaten until his eyes were shut. Hamer was released on June 12, 1963. She needed more than a month to recuperate from the beatings and never fully recovered. Though the incident left profound physical and psychological effects, including a blood clot over her left eye and permanent damage on one of her kidneys, Hamer returned to Mississippi to organize voter registration drives, including the 1963 Freedom Ballot, a mock election, and the Freedom Summer Initiative the following year. In 1964, Hamer helped co-found the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party in an effort to prevent the regional all-white Democratic Party's attempt to stifle African American voices and to ensure there was a party for all people that need not stand for any form of exploitation and discrimination. In 1968, the MFDP was finally seated after the Democratic Party adopted a clause that demanded equality of representation from their state's delegations. In 1972, Hamer was elected as a National Party delegate. Hamer traveled around the county and the country speaking at various colleges, universities, and institutions. She was not rich, as confirmed by her clothing. Hamer was a short and stocky, poor black woman with a deep Southern accent, which gave rise to ridicule in the minds of many in her audiences. Although she had often gave speeches, she was often patronized by both black and white people because she was not formally educated. Hamer's style of speaking and connecting to audiences can be traced back to her upbringing in the Black Baptist church to which her family belonged, which many see as the source of her ability to compel audiences with words. Woven into her speeches was a deep level of confidence, biblical knowledge, and even comedy in a way that many did not think possible for someone without a formal education. Hamer witnessed her mother be brave enough to walk around with a concealed pistol to protect her children from white landowners who were known to beat sharecroppers' children. Moreover, her mother instilled a sense of pride in being black when Hamer did not see it as a benefit as a child. Hamer sought equality across all aspects of society. In Hamer's view, African Americans were not technically free if they were not afforded the same opportunities as whites, including those in the agricultural industry. Sharecropping was the most common form of post-slavery activity and income in the South. The New Deal era expanded so that many blacks were physically and economically displaced due to the various projects appearing around the country. Hamer did not wish to have blacks be dependent on any group for any longer, so she wanted to give them a voice through an agricultural movement. Hamer partnered with the National Council of Negro Women to establish an interracial support program called the Pig Project to provide protein for people who previously could not afford meat. Hamer made it her mission to make land more accessible to African Americans. To do this, she started a small pig bank with a starting
donation from the NCNW of 5 boars and 50 gilts. Through the pig bank, a family could care for a pregnant female pig until it bore its offspring. They would raise the piglets and use them for food and financial gain. FFC had raised around $8,000, which allowed Hamer to purchase 40 acres of land previously owned by a black farmer who could no longer afford to occupy the land. This land had become the Freedom Farm. The farm had 3 main objectives. These were to establish an agricultural organization that could supplement the nutritional needs of Americans' most disenfranchised people, to provide acceptable housing development, and to create an entrepreneurial business that would provide resources for new companies and retraining for those with limited education but manual labor experience. The FFC ultimately disbanded in 1975 due to lack of funding. In 1971, Hamer co-founded the National Women's Political Caucus. She emphasized the power women could hold by acting as a voting majority in the country regardless of race, saying, "A white mother is no different from a black mother. The only thing is they haven't had as many problems, but we cry the same tears." She came out of an extended period in the hospital for nervous exhaustion in January 1972 and was hospitalized again in January 1974 for a nervous breakdown. By June 1974, Hamer was said to be in extremely poor health. 2 years later, she was diagnosed with and had surgery for breast cancer. Hamer died of complications of hypertension and breast cancer on March 14, 1977, at age 59.